In last week's video, we covered the lives of Wilhelm II's four sisters. Today is a continuation on that topic as we will look at the three brothers Wilhelm had. But before we jump right in, I have to mention that two of those brothers, Sigismund and Waldemar, died in childhood while only Henry reached adulthood. To make the video more understandable, we will look at Sigismund and Waldemar first before we unroll the life of Prince Henry. Wilhelm and his siblings were the children of the later German Emperor and King of Prussia Frederick III and his British-born wife Victoria. Victoria was known as the Princess Royal, being the eldest daughter to Queen Victoria and her husband Albert, the Prince Consort. In total they had 8 children, all of them being born before Frederick ascended the throne. Especially after the death of Sigismund and Waldemar, the family split apart. The 3 eldest siblings, Wilhelm, Charlotte, and Henry, formed one group that despised their parents, and the youngest 3 sisters who were loving and supporting of their parents. But now let's get into the video. Prince Francis Frederick Sigismund of Prussia was born on September 15, 1864 at the New Palace in Potsdam. Sigismund, or Siggy as he was called in his family, fell ill with meningitis in June 1866. As his father had taken all doctors available to the front of the Austro-Prussian War, Sigismund succumbed to the disease at only 29 months. The death of Sigismund left his mother Victoria heartbroken as she felt guilty for not being able to help him. Sigismund was the first grandchild of Queen Victoria to die, almost 115 years before his last cousin, Princess Alice, Countess of Athlone, died in 1981. Princess Alice was in fact the longest-lived blood royal of all time. Sigismund also died before he had the chance to meet his youngest 3 siblings. Prince Joachim Frederick Ernest Waldemar of Prussia was born 2 years after the death of Sigismund on February 10, 1868. The young prince was known as Waldemar in the family, and he quickly became the favorite child of his parents. He was lively, cheerful, and had a big love for sports and animals. While visiting his grandmother, Queen Victoria, Waldemar let loose his pet crocodile in her study, which shocked the queen. Like this story already underlines, Prince Waldemar had a great sense of humor and a fun character, much to the delight of his mother, who found it a pleasure to teach a young boy. In March 1879, Waldemar fell seriously ill with diphtheria, and it did not take long for the young prince to find his early death due to the disease. He was buried near his elder brother in the royal mausoleum of the Friedenskirche in Potsdam. Prince Henry of Prussia was the elder brother of Sigismund and Waldemar and the younger brother of the later Wilhelm II. He was born in Berlin on August 14, 1862. Young Henry, just like his brother Wilhelm and his sister Charlotte, struggled to live up to the high expectations of his mother. In a letter Victoria wrote to her own mother about her son, she stated, "He is lazy, boring, and bad in school." With only 3 years between Henry and Wilhelm, the 2 brothers were inseparable as young boys. Their parents, Frederick and Victoria, had hired a tutor named Georg Hinspeter in order to make sure that the young boys, and especially Wilhelm, would one day become a modern monarch. Henry turned out to be less intelligent than his older brother, much to the demise of his mother. The family would often make trips to England, where they visited the seaports to show their children the mighty fleet of Europe's greatest naval power. Therefore, from an early age on, Henry was interested in the navy. To encourage his interest, a shipmast was set up in the new palace in Potsdam. And so, it is no surprise that Henry dropped out of a gymnasium in Kassel to enter the Imperial Cadet program at 15 years old. But with the entry into the cadet program also came the separation from Wilhelm. The 2 brothers were allowed to sleep in Henry's room before he had to leave the next day. Henry therefore left his bed to Wilhelm and slept on his hammock for the night. It would take 7 years and a 2-year tour around the world until Henry would complete his education and enter the Navy. Henry very much enjoyed his life on the sea. He in fact even wrote to his mother in a letter, "You can hardly imagine how glad I am to go to sea again, as a sailor's life on board is too nice and I am so fond of it." As a prince, he was privileged to soon take over command of the 1st Torpedo Boat Division. Many more commands followed in the next few years. Henry's education laid the foundation for his humble self-image and his excellent social skills, as he was required to live in the cramped space of the ships just like all his other colleagues. In 1888, Prince Henry married his first cousin, Princess Irene of Hesse and by Rhine. The marriage was much to the displeasure of their grandmother, Queen Victoria, as she was not informed by the courtship until they already had decided to marry. Henry's father, the new German emperor, attended the wedding, although he was dying of throat cancer. Henry and Irene had a happy marriage. She soon got pregnant and gave birth to their first son in March 1889. She shocked her mother-in-law when she did not hide her pregnancy with proper clothing. The couple had 3 more sons. 2 of them inherited hemophilia from their mother, the so-called royal disease. Henry and Irene's youngest son died of hemophilia at 4 years old when he hit his head. Their eldest son, Waldemar, died 6 days before the Second World War came to an end, as the leftover blood supplies were used to treat the victims of the concentration camp nearby. Despite enjoying a happy marriage, Henry had an affair with a Hungarian singer named Julie, who bore him 2 more sons. Henry was close with his brother, but different in many ways. Henry was quite popular within the empire, and his down-to-earth attitude was appreciated by the soldiers. He was a great diplomat representing his brother abroad, and unlike Wilhelm, Henry always found the right words. Henry looked up to his older brother, while Wilhelm did not quite appreciate his younger brother's admiration for him. Although Henry was Wilhelm's deputy as long as Wilhelm's eldest son was a minor, Wilhelm always made sure to keep his brother out of politics. But that was no problem for Henry, who was not interested in politics anyways. In fact, many people were worried about the type of regent he would be in the case that the empire would need one day. Henry was interested in flying, yachting, and in motor cars. He was the first person to receive a flying license in Germany, and he was dedicated to modern technology, understanding early the value of innovations. Henry himself registered a patent on a windshield wiper for cars in 1905. He supposedly also invented a car horn. Further, Henry attended the test drive of the newly German-produced submarine Forelle. During the ride, Henry would partially also drive the submarine successfully. When the First World War broke out, Henry was appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Baltic Fleet. He hindered the Russian Navy from making attacks on the German coast. After the Russian Revolution of 1917, Henry's duty in the Navy came to an end. He consequently left the Navy with the end of the monarchy in 1918. Henry and Irene continued to live in Germany after the First World War, where Henry continued to devote his time towards his interests. He would visit his exiled brother in the Netherlands once or twice a year. Henry lastly died in 1929 of throat cancer, the same illness that killed his father over 40 years earlier. Ironically, during Henry's lifetime, it was always said that he most resembled his father's looks and attitude. And just like Frederick, Henry also was a lifelong heavy smoker. Up until this day, historians claim that Henry might have been a better emperor than his elder brother. He might have been a good constitutional monarch and understanding to his people. However, these remain speculations, as we do not know how history would have gone that way.